The hand grabbed my shoulder on a frozen New York street at midnight, and I knew I was about to die. What I didn't know was that the Mafia boss, the man who'd just humiliated and fired me in front of his entire executive team, had been watching me the entire time. And when four men in black suits materialized from the shadows with guns drawn, I realized the firing wasn't real. It was bait, and I was the trap. Zara Williams stood in the center of the glass-walled conference room, 23 floors above Manhattan's financial district, watching her career implode in real time. The presentation she'd spent 6 weeks preparing, the one that detailed systematic fraud in the overseas accounts, lay scattered across the mahogany table like accusatory evidence of her own failure. Except it wasn't failure. Zara knew it wasn't failure. Sir, if you just look at page 17, she reached for the nearest report, her dark fingers trembling slightly as they gripped the edge of the glossy paper. The pattern is undeniable. Someone's been siphoning funds through the Jakarta subsidiary for at least— I said you're done. The Mafia boss didn't raise his voice. He never raised his voice. That was what made him so terrifying. The man who controlled half of New York's underground economy while running a legitimate billion-dollar empire spoke in the same measured tone, whether he was approving a merger or destroying someone's life. Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to clear your desk. The room felt like it was tilting. Around the table, 7 senior executives, all men, all white, all carefully avoiding her eyes, sat in thunderous silence. 30 minutes? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Sir, I've been with this company for 4 years. I've never had a single complaint. Your performance reviews are irrelevant when you bring me conspiracy theories and call them financial analysis. Now the Mafia boss did look at her, and Zara felt the full weight of those ice blue eyes. In his dark suit that glittered subtly under the conference room lights, expensive threads woven through the black fabric, over a crisp white collared shirt, with his dark hair silvering at the temples and his sharp Slavic features, he looked like something carved from marble. Cold, untouchable, absolutely certain. He was Nikolai Kovac to the business world, but everyone in the room knew what he really was: the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast. These aren't shadows, Zara insisted. The transfers are real. The shell companies are real. Someone is stealing from you, and I can prove— Enough. The Mafia boss stood, all 6'4" of him, unfolding from his chair with the grace of a predator. Security is waiting outside. If you're not gone in 30 minutes, I'll have you removed by force. Cowards. All of them. Fine. Zara straightened her spine. Williams women don't beg. Williams women don't break. I'll be out in 20. Her hand was on the glass door handle when the Mafia boss's voice stopped her. Miss Williams. She didn't turn around. Take the subway home. Walk if you have to. Think about whether you're cut out for this kind of work. His words were ice wrapped in velvet. Real analysts don't see ghosts in spreadsheets. The subway. It was 11:47 p.m. She'd stayed late because he'd insisted they needed the presentation ready for the morning board meeting. It's nearly midnight, she said quietly, and it's January. Then you should have planned better. The walk. 3, sun to 8. The elevator descent felt like falling through ice. 29 years old, her natural hair pulled back in a professional twist, wearing the Navy theory suit she'd saved 3 months to afford. looking every inch the successful financial analyst, feeling like a complete and utter failure. The January wind hit her like a physical blow. New York in the dead of winter was unforgiving, and tonight the temperature had dropped to somewhere around 15 degrees. Zara pulled her coat tighter and started walking. 4 years. She'd given Kovac International 4 years of her life. She'd been the first black woman promoted to senior analyst in the company's 40-year history. She'd proven herself 1,000 times over. And it still wasn't enough. Zara made it 3 blocks before the tears started, freezing on her cheeks in the bitter wind. She was so focused on not crying that she almost didn't hear the footsteps behind her. Almost. Zara's grandmother had grown up in South Memphis in the 60s, had taught her granddaughter that a black woman walking alone at night needed to be aware of everything, every shadow, every sound, every instinct that whispered danger. And right now, those instincts were screaming. The footsteps were trying to match her pace, staying just far enough behind to seem coincidental. She sped up. The footsteps sped up. Her heart was hammering now. The subway station was 2 blocks ahead. The footsteps broke into a run. Zara ran. Her heels slipped on the ice. She could hear him gaining on her, definitely a him. The footfalls were too heavy to be anything else. 1 block, just 1 more block. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Zara screamed, spinning around with her purse raised as a weapon. She got a glimpse of a face. White, mid-40s, dead eyes, before someone else was there, moving with deadly precision. The newcomer drove a fist into her attacker's solar plexus with surgical accuracy. The man went down hard, gasping for air. Before Zara could process what was happening, her rescuer had his knee on the attacker's back, one arm twisted at an angle that made her wince. "Don't move," her rescuer said calmly. "Miss Williams, are you hurt?" Zara stared at him, mid-30s, built like someone who knew how to handle himself, wearing an expensive coat that didn't quite hide the shoulder holster underneath. And he knew her name. What? Who are you?" "Dmitry Volkov, Miss Williams. I'm part of the boss's family." He was already speaking into his phone, rapid-fire Russian. Then, switching back to English, "Yes, boss, I have her. She's safe." "The boss?" Zara's mind was reeling. "Why would he? He just fired me." Headlights cut through the darkness. A black Mercedes S-Class screeched to a halt at the curb, and then the Mafia boss himself was emerging from the back seat. He wasn't wearing a coat. His glittering black suit jacket was unbuttoned, his white shirt pristine except where his tie had been loosened. His normally perfect hair was disheveled, and there was something wild in his eyes, something that looked almost like panic. "Are you hurt?" The Mafia boss's hands were on her shoulders before she could answer, his eyes scanning her face, her arms looking for injuries with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Dmitri, is she hurt?" "She's unharmed, boss. I got here before he could do more than grab her." The Mafia boss's jaw clenched so hard, Zara could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. He pulled her closer and she realized with a shock that his hands were shaking. "Get in the car, now!" It wasn't a request. The Mercedes's interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Zara found herself in the back seat with the Mafia boss, while Dmitri drove, and another man, someone she recognized from building security, sat in the passenger seat with his hand resting casually on a weapon. "I don't understand what's happening," Zara said. Why was that man following me? You fired me. I didn't fire you. The mafia boss's voice was clipped, controlled. I made a show of firing you. There's a difference. A show? Anger burned through the shock now. You humiliated me in front of the entire senior staff. That was a show? Yes. No apology, just that single word, heavy with certainty. Explain. Now. The mafia boss studied her for a long moment. In the dim light of the car's interior, his features were all sharp angles and shadows. Dangerous, beautiful, terrifying. The analysis you brought me was flawless. You found something I've been looking for 6 months. Someone in my organization has been systematically stealing from the Jakarta subsidiary. Then why? Because the moment you handed me that presentation, you became a target. His hands were still on her shoulders, warm and solid through her coat. The person stealing from me is smart, careful. They would have been monitoring my office. When I made a show of rejecting your findings, firing you publicly, I gambled that they'd think they were safe, that you were no longer a threat. Understanding crashed over Zara like ice water. You sent me out there as bait. No. The word was sharp, almost violent. The mafia boss's eyes flashed with something fierce and possessive. I sent you out there under protection. Dmitri is one of my most trusted soldiers. I had 4 other men from my organization positioned along your route home. You were never unguarded for a single second. You couldn't have known someone would actually come after me. I suspected. The mafia boss's expression was grim. The person stealing from me has killed before. 2 accountants in Jakarta made to look like accidents. A lawyer in Singapore who got too close to the truth. When you handed me proof of the theft, I knew they'd see you as a threat. 2 accountants, a lawyer, people who'd done their jobs too well and paid for it with their lives. Every step you took was watched, the mafia boss continued, his accent thickening slightly with emotion. Every second, someone from my family was tracking you. His hands tightened on her shoulders. I don't gamble with lives, Miss Williams, especially not yours. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you care? I'm just an analyst, just an employee. Something flickered in the mafia boss's eyes. Surprise, vulnerability, quickly masked. You're the first person in 5 years to look at my books and find a problem I couldn't see myself. You're brilliant, Zara, brilliant and brave and completely incorruptible, which is rarer than you know in my world. He'd used her first name. The sound of it in his accent sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. The Mercedes turned down a private road, pulling up to a gate that opened automatically. Beyond it, an estate materialized through the darkness, all stone and wrought iron and old money architecture that spoke of generations of wealth and power. Where are we? Somewhere safe. The Mercedes stopped, and the mafia boss was already moving, helping her out with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the controlled violence she'd seen in his eyes. Until I know who tried to have you killed and why, you're staying under my protection. I can't just disappear. My grandmother will worry. Your grandmother will receive a call from you in the morning explaining that you've been sent on urgent business to the London office. The mafia boss was already guiding her toward the main entrance, his hand at the small of her back. Your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, will be paid to water your plants. Your bills will be handled. Everything will be taken care of. The presumption should have made her furious. Instead, Zara found herself too exhausted to fight. She'd almost been killed. Someone had tried to murder her on a frozen New York street, and the only reason she was alive was because this dangerous man had been watching over her. She let him lead her inside. The interior screamed old money. Marble floors covered with Persian rugs, artwork she recognized from her art history classes at Howard, antiques that looked like they belonged in museums. This wasn't new money trying to look impressive. This was generations of power, accumulated over decades through means both legal and decidedly not. The mafia boss took her up a sweeping staircase, his hand never leaving the small of her back, protective and possessive all at once. They walked down a hallway lined with portraits, stern-faced men and elegant women, all with those same ice-blue eyes, until they reached a bedroom suite that was easily 3 times the size of her entire apartment. The bathroom is through there. The mafia boss nodded toward a door on the left. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. A doctor will be here in 15 minutes to examine you. Zara looked up at him. This man still radiating tension like a live wire, whose expensive, glittering suit couldn't quite hide the coiled strength underneath, who ran a criminal empire with the same casual efficiency most people use to run a household. "Who's stealing from you?" she asked. A ghost of a smile touched the mafia boss's lips. "I was hoping you'd tell me." "I can narrow it down. The transfers are sophisticated. Whoever's doing this knows your system intimately." Zara's analytical mind was already working through the problem, seeking the comfort of numbers and patterns. "How many people in your organization have that level of clearance?" "Including me? 8. The pattern suggests someone who travels frequently between New York, Jakarta, and Singapore. The money's being moved through different time zones, always in amounts small enough to avoid triggering automatic alerts." She held the mafia boss's gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "This person knows your security protocols inside and out. Keep going." The mafia boss moved closer, his eyes intense on hers. "The discrepancies started about 8 months ago. Small at first, then gradually increasing as they tested whether anyone would notice." Zara wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how close he was standing, how his presence seemed to fill the room. "You have someone on your senior team who's patient, smart, and desperate enough to kill to protect their operation. And you found them." The mafia boss's voice was soft, almost reverent. "In 6 weeks, you found what I've been searching for 6 months." A knock on the door interrupted them. A woman entered, 50s. Kind face, carrying towels and a thick robe. She said something in Russian to the mafia boss, who responded in the same language. "This is Irina. She'll help you get cleaned up before the doctor arrives." The mafia boss was already moving toward the door, putting distance between them. "I'll be in my office. When you're ready, we'll talk about what happens next." He paused at the threshold, looked back. "Zara." The way he said her name, low, rough, with that hint of Slavic accent, did dangerous things to her pulse. "You're safe here. I give you my word." And somehow, impossibly, she believed him. The doctor arrived exactly 15 minutes later, an older man with gentle hands who examined her thoroughly and declared her bruised but otherwise unharmed. Irina brought soup and bread that tasted homemade. Someone had left pajamas on the bed. Silk, expensive, fitting perfectly because, of course, the Mafia boss would know her exact measurements. Zara found the laptop someone had thoughtfully left on the nightstand. It was already logged into a secure server with access to files she'd never been cleared to see before. If the Mafia boss wanted to know who was stealing from him, she'd figure it out. She worked through the night, pulling up the files she'd backed up to her personal cloud storage and cross-referencing them with the new data. Travel records, expense reports, wire transfers, shell company registrations, building a timeline, mapping patterns, narrowing down the suspects. 8 people with high-level access became 5 when she eliminated those without the right travel patterns. 5 became 3 when she filtered for technical knowledge. 3 became 2 when she looked at who had the authority to kill without attracting attention. And 2 became 1 when she found the smoking gun, a wire transfer authorization from Jakarta on a night when the suspect's passport showed he was supposedly in New York. The sun was rising when she finally had her answer, complete with airtight evidence. She showered, dressed in the clothes that had been left for her, expensive, tailored, fitting perfectly, and went to find the Mafia boss. She found him in his office on the ground floor, standing at the window with a cup of coffee, looking out at the estate's grounds. He'd changed clothes, black slacks and a charcoal gray shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms. His dark hair was still damp from a shower. He turned when she entered, and something in his expression shifted when he saw her. A softening around his eyes, a slight curve to his lips that wasn't quite a smile, but close. "You didn't sleep. Neither did you." She could see it in the shadows under his eyes, the tension that still lived in his shoulders. "I found your thief." Zara laid the printouts on his desk. The Mafia boss moved to examine them, his expression unreadable as he scanned page after page of evidence. When he finally looked up, his eyes were colder than she'd ever seen them. And that was saying something. "Garrett Morrison." Zara nodded. "Your chief operating officer. He's been with you for 12 years, has access to every system, travels to all the right locations. And he lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago. The medical bills bankrupted him. So he decided to steal from me." The Mafia boss's voice was soft, deadly, "and kill anyone who got too close to the truth." Zara's hands were shaking now, adrenaline and exhaustion catching up with her. The accountants in Jakarta, the lawyer in Singapore, they all reported to Morrison. He would have known the moment they found something, just like he would have known the moment I handed you my presentation. The Mafia boss gathered the papers with movements so controlled they were almost mechanical. "This is excellent work, Zara. Thank you." "What will you do to him? That's not something you need to concern yourself with." She stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of steel in his blue eyes. "He tried to have me killed." "Yes. So I think I do get to be concerned." The Mafia boss studied her for a long moment, then moved around the desk until only inches separated them. This close, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He was imposing, not just in height, but in presence, in the controlled violence that radiated from him like heat. "Garrett Morrison will face consequences for his theft and for ordering your death. the Mafia boss said quietly, each word measured and deliberate. Those consequences will be severe. They will be final. And they will send a message to anyone else who might consider betraying me or harming someone under my protection. You're going to kill him. I'm going to make sure he never threatens anyone I care about ever again. Anyone I care about. What is this? Zara whispered. What's happening here? The Mafia boss's hand came up to cup her face, the gesture so gentle it made her throat tight. His palm was warm against her cheek, slightly rough with calluses. This man who wore $1,000 suits had the hands of someone who'd done violence personally. I told myself I was protecting an asset, he said quietly, his accent thicker now with emotion, a valuable employee. That my anger when I saw that man following you was about potentially losing someone with your skills. His other hand joined the first, framing her face like she was something infinitely precious. I was lying to myself. Zara's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could feel it. When did you know? Maybe when you first walked into my office 18 months ago for your promotion interview and looked me dead in the eye while everyone else wouldn't meet my gaze. The Mafia boss's thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. Maybe when you started leaving notes on my desk questioning my decisions. Politely, respectfully, but questioning nonetheless. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone brilliant enough to see the flaws in my thinking and brave enough to point them out? His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and Zara stopped breathing entirely. Or maybe it was yesterday when you handed me proof that someone was stealing from me and I realized that I'd put you in danger just by letting you work for me. When I saw that car's headlights on the security feed and thought for 1 second that I might lose you. He stopped, jaw clenching, and Zara could see the war in his eyes. I'm not a good man, Zara. The Mafia boss's voice was rough, raw. The things I've done, the world I live in, you should run from me. You should take the money I'm going to give you for this work and disappear somewhere safe, somewhere far from New York and the darkness I bring with me. His hands tightened fractionally on her face. But I'm also selfish enough to want to keep you anyway, to want to give you everything you need, your grandmother's medical bills paid in full for the rest of her life. A salary that means you never have to choose between your career and her care. Protection from anyone who would dare threaten you. He paused, his blue eyes burning into hers. And me, if you'll have me. The world seemed to stop. Outside, the sun was fully risen now, painting the office in golden light. Somewhere in the house, staff were moving about their duties, but in this moment, in this room, there was only the Mafia boss looking at her like she was air and water and everything he needed to survive. I barely know you, Zara said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they weren't quite true. She knew him in ways that mattered, knew his brilliance, his control, the way he commanded absolute loyalty from dangerous men. Knew the gentleness in his hands that contradicted the ruthlessness of his reputation. Then get to know me. The Mafia boss's voice was almost pleading, a vulnerability she suspected he rarely showed. Stay here. Work with me. Let me show you who I am beyond the monster everyone whispers about. Zara should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to walk away from this dangerous man and his dangerous world. But her grandmother hadn't raised her to be stupid. hadn't raised her to give anything away for free. I want full access to the accounts, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Not just the ones you've been showing me, all of them, the legitimate businesses and the others. The real books. Surprise flickered across the mafia boss's face, followed by something that looked almost like pride. The negotiation, 47 transferred to 52. All of them, Zara repeated. If I'm going to work for you, really work for you, I need to see everything. I need to know exactly what I'm getting into. No more secrets, no more compartmentalization. Full transparency. A slow smile spread across the mafia boss's face, transforming him from intimidating to devastating. You're negotiating with me. You're not the only one who can be ruthless. The mafia boss laughed, an actual laugh, rich and genuine, and Zara realized she'd never heard him laugh before. The sound transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost boyish despite the silver in his hair. All right, full access, full transparency. You'll see exactly who I am and what I do, and then you can decide if you still want to stay. And my grandmother's care? Already handled. I made the calls 3 hours ago. The mafia boss's eyes were dancing now. Willowbrook's director nearly cried when I told her to spare no expense, that your grandmother was to have everything she needed for the rest of her life, billed directly to me. I also established a trust in her name, $5 million managed by the best financial advisors in New York. Even if something happens to me, she'll never want for anything. Of course he did. Presumptuous, impossible, wonderful man. Zara reached up and gripped his wrists, feeling his pulse beating strong and steady against her fingers. If I stay, this can't be about power. It can't be you making decisions for me, controlling my life. I need agency. I need choice. I need to be a partner, not a possession. You'll have both. The mafia boss's voice was fierce, absolute. I swear it on everything I am. You'll have access, transparency, choice in everything we do together. But Zara! His eyes bored into hers. If you stay, if you choose this, you need to understand something. I will protect you. I will eliminate threats to you. I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe. That's not negotiable. That's not something I can compromise on. Even if I don't want you to, even then. No apology in his voice, just pure, unvarnished truth. I lost someone once because I didn't act fast enough, because I convinced myself that giving them freedom meant letting them take risks I should have prevented. I won't make that mistake again. There was a story there, something painful buried in the mafia boss's past. Zara filed it away to explore later. Right now, she was too focused on the man in front of her, on the decision that would change her entire life. She thought of her grandmother, who'd raised her to be strong, independent, unafraid. Thought of the bills that had been crushing her for years, suddenly lifted. Thought of the fear she'd felt last night, and the safety she felt now in this house with this man. Thought of the way the mafia boss looked at her, like she was brilliant and precious and worth protecting. Like she mattered in a way that went beyond her usefulness. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay. I'll get to know you. I'll work with you. I'll see where this goes. The kiss was inevitable. The mafia boss pulled her closer with infinite care, giving her every opportunity to change her mind, to pull away. His movements were slow, deliberate, controlled even now. When she didn't, when she rose on her toes to meet him halfway, his mouth captured hers with a hunger that stole her breath. He tasted like coffee and promises, like danger and safety all wrapped together. His lips were soft but demanding, coaxing hers open. The mafia boss's hands slid into her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss, and Zara melted into him. Her fingers clutched at his shirt, feeling the hard muscle beneath the expensive fabric. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the mafia boss rested his forehead against hers. "I will earn this," he murmured in that accent that did dangerous things to her pulse. "Your trust, your faith in me. I'll earn every bit of it, Zara. Every single day." "You'd better," she smiled, feeling dizzy and reckless and more alive than she'd felt in years. "Because I'm trusting you with everything." A knock on the door interrupted them. Dmitri entered, his expression carefully neutral despite the fact that he definitely just witnessed his boss kissing an analyst. "Boss, Morrison is here. He came as soon as you called. Didn't suspect anything." The mafia boss's expression shifted instantly, all the warmth draining away to be replaced by something cold and lethal. The transformation was terrifying. From the man who just kissed her with desperate tenderness to the mob boss who ruled New York's underworld with an iron fist. "Good. Have him wait in the lower conference room. I'll be down shortly." "Boss?" Dmitri nodded and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Zara stepped back, suddenly aware of what was about to happen. "I want to be there." "No." The mafia boss's voice was gentle but firm, even as his hand came up to cup her cheek one more time. "What happens next isn't something you should see. It's not something you need to carry. He tried to kill me. I deserve to face him. You deserve to never have to see that side of this world." The mafia boss's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, infinitely tender. "You deserve to stay untouched by the violence, the ugliness. Let me handle this. Let me protect you from this, at least." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on being present, on confronting the man who'd ordered her death. But the look in the mafia boss's eyes stopped her. This wasn't about control or keeping her weak. This was about him trying to preserve something in her that he thought was worth saving. "All right," she said finally. "But when it's done, you come find me. No shutting me out. No disappearing into whatever darkness you think you need to face alone. You promised transparency." "I did." The mafia boss pressed a kiss to her forehead, his lips lingering against her skin. "And I'll honor that promise. After I handle Garrett Morrison." Zara left him there, walking back through the beautiful, terrible house to her borrowed room. She stood at the window, looking out at the grounds, manicured gardens, high stone walls, armed guards patrolling the perimeter with military precision. This was her life now, if she truly chose it. This world of wealth and danger, of ruthless men and impossible choices. And somehow, impossibly, she didn't want to run from it. She pulled out her phone and called her grandmother. "Nana, it's me. No, I know it's not Sunday. I just wanted to hear your voice. I'm good. I'm safe. Actually, I have some news. 3 hours felt like 3 days. Zara paced the room, unable to sit still, unable to stop thinking about what the mafia boss was doing, what methods he'd choose, how final consequences really meant. When he finally appeared in her doorway, she could see the weariness in him. His shirt was different, fresh, crisp white instead of the charcoal gray. His hands were scrubbed clean, but there was a weight in his shoulders that spoke of something he'd just done, something that had cost him. "It's done," the mafia boss said simply. Zara set down the book she'd been pretending to read. "Is he? He'll never threaten anyone again." The mafia boss moved into the room and she could see the exhaustion in him now. "That's all you need to know." She should be horrified, should be demanding details, calling the police. Instead, she stood and went to him, taking his hand in both of hers. "Are you okay?" The mafia boss looked at her like she'd asked him something in a foreign language. "Am I... Zara, I know what you just did. I'm asking if you're okay." Something cracked in his expression. The mafia boss pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe, his face buried in her hair. She could feel the tension in every line of his body, the way his hands trembled slightly against her back. "You shouldn't care," he muttered against her hair. "You should be disgusted with me, afraid of me." "But I'm not." Zara wrapped her arms around him, holding him just as tightly. "Is that wrong?" A huff of breath that might have been a laugh. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" "Apparently." They stood there for a long time, holding each other as the afternoon light shifted across the floor. Outside, the world went on. Normal, safe, predictable. But here, in this room, in this moment, Zara had chosen something else entirely. "What happens now?" she asked eventually. The mafia boss pulled back enough to look at her, his hands settling on her waist. "Now I keep my promises, full transparency, full access. You'll see every dark corner of my empire, every ugly truth. And if I decide I can't live with it, then I'll let you go. I'll set you up somewhere safe with enough money that you'll never have to work again." His smile was sad. "I'll hate every second of it, but I'll do it. And if I decide I can live with it," the mafia boss's smile turned wicked, "then I'll spend every day proving that you made the right choice. I'll give you everything, Zara, everything you've ever wanted and things you didn't know you could want. I'll challenge you, infuriate you, push you to be better than you ever thought you could be." He pulled her closer. "And I'll protect you with everything I have. I'll build you an empire if you want one. I'll give you the freedom to pursue whatever interests you. I'll make sure your grandmother has the best care in the world. I'll give you a life that's extraordinary." That's a lot of promises. Then we should probably make sure I can keep them. Over the next 6 months, Zara learned the truth of the mafia boss's world. She saw the violence, not directly, but in the aftermath, in the men who disappeared, in the meetings that ended with bloodstains that needed cleaning. In the casual way the mafia boss ordered deaths with the same tone he used to order coffee. But she also saw the other side. The neighborhoods he protected better than the police did. The families who came to him for help when the system failed them. The code he lived by. No drugs, no human trafficking, no preying on the innocent. She restructured his accounts, legitimized what could be legitimized, streamlined what couldn't, turned a sprawling criminal empire into something more organized, more efficient, more defensible. And through it all, the mafia boss kept his promises. Full access, full transparency, full partnership. He courted her properly. Dinners at restaurants that required reservations months in advance, weekends at his estate, quiet mornings drinking coffee and reading the newspaper together. He was gentle with her grandmother, patient with her questions, respectful of her concerns. He never hid what he was, never pretended to be anything other than a man who'd built an empire on violence and blood. But he also showed her the man underneath, the one who'd lost his parents to a rival family when he was 14, who'd clawed his way to power to protect what remained of his family, who'd killed to survive and kept killing to protect those he loved. And somewhere along the way, Zara fell in love with him, not despite what he was, but including it, all of it. The mafia boss proposed on a frozen January night, exactly 1 year after he'd sent her walking into danger to save her life. He took her back to that same street corner where Dmitri had pulled her attacker off of her. The spot was transformed now. Hundreds of white roses arranged in a path leading to where he stood waiting, flanked by soft lights that turned the snow into something magical. "This is where I almost lost you," the mafia boss said as she approached, his breath misting in the cold air. He was wearing the same glittering black suit from that night, the white shirt crisp beneath. "This is where I realized that I would burn the entire city down before I let anyone take you from me." He dropped to one knee in the snow. "Zara Williams, you walked into my darkness and brought light. You looked at my empire of blood and shadows and saw something worth saving. You challenged me, changed me, made me want to be better than I am." He pulled out a ring, antique, beautiful, with a diamond that caught the light like captured fire. "I can't promise you a normal life. I can't promise you safety from the world I live in. But I can promise you that I will love you fiercely, protect you ruthlessly, and spend every day of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." Tears were streaming down Zara's face now, freezing on her cheeks just like they had that night. "Marry me," the mafia boss said. "Build an empire with me. Have a family with me. Grow old with me. Be my partner in everything, in business, in life, in this beautiful, dangerous future we're creating together." "Yes," Zara said before he could even finish. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." The mafia boss slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that was tender and fierce and full of promise. Around them, his men, who'd been positioned in the shadows for security, applauded. Dmitri stepped forward with champagne and glasses, grinning broadly. "Congratulations, boss, Miss Williams. Or should I say, future Mrs. Boss." The mafia boss laughed, that genuine, warm sound that Zara had learned to treasure. "Just Zara is fine, Dmitri. With respect, boss, she's family now. She needs a proper title." Dmitri's expression turned serious. "The organization needs to know she's not just protected, she's one of us. She's untouchable." The mafia boss looked at Zara, his eyebrow raised in question. She thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "Tell them I'm the boss's queen, and that I expect the same respect you'd give him." Dimitri's grin widened. Yes, ma'am. The boss's queen. I like it. They were married in the spring at the estate, in a ceremony that was equal parts traditional wedding and organized crime summit. Zara's grandmother sat in the front row, resplendent in purple silk, crying happy tears. The church was filled with an unlikely mix of guests. Zara's former colleagues from Howard University, her friends from the neighborhood, sitting alongside men in expensive suits who probably had more blood on their hands than years of education. The Mafia boss stood at the altar in a black suit that somehow glittered even more than usual, custom made for the occasion. When Zara appeared at the end of the aisle in her white dress, designed by Vera Wang, paid for by the Mafia boss over her protests, his expression transformed into something so tender it made her grandmother cry even harder. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," the Mafia boss whispered when she reached him, taking her hands in his. The ceremony was traditional, the vows sincere. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," the Mafia boss pulled her close and kissed her with a possessiveness that made it clear to everyone watching that she was his, completely and irrevocably. At the reception, Zara danced with her new husband, swaying in his arms while a string quartet played. "Happy?" the Mafia boss murmured against her hair. "Deliriously." Zara looked up at him. "Are you?" "I didn't think I was capable of this kind of happiness." His hand tightened on her waist. "You gave me something I thought was lost forever. Hope, purpose beyond just survival and power. A future worth building." "We're building it together." "Yes, we are, Mrs. Boss." He smiled at her expression. "Dimitri told the entire organization about your title. You're now known throughout New York's underworld as the boss's queen. People are already asking to bring disputes to you for resolution." "Are they now?" Zara raised an eyebrow. "And what did you tell them?" "That you're brilliant, fair, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. That anyone who disrespects you will answer to me personally." The Mafia boss's smile turned wicked. "3 families have already sent expensive gifts as a sign of respect. You're more feared than some of my captains." "Good," Zara grinned. "William's women don't play." Her grandmother cut in for a dance, and Zara found herself swaying to the music with the woman who'd raised her. "You happy, baby?" Her grandmother's voice was soft, her eyes searching Zara's face. "I am, Nana. Really, truly happy. He's a good man underneath all that danger. I can see it in the way he looks at you, like you hung the moon and stars." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "Your mama would be proud of you. You found someone who matches your strength." "I love him, Nana." "I know you do, baby, and he loves you right back. That man would burn the world down for you, and somehow I think you'd do the same for him." 18 months after the wedding, Zara stood in front of the board of directors of Kovac International and presented the preliminary prospectus for their initial public offering. The numbers were perfect. The structure was sound. Every questionable operation had been restructured, closed, or legitimized. The Mafia boss had slowly been transitioning the organization, not abandoning the criminal enterprises entirely, but creating enough legitimate business that they had options, protection, respectability. It had been Zara's idea, and it had taken months of careful planning, strategic maneuvering, and occasionally ruthless action to make it happen. In the back of the room, the Mafia boss watched her with undisguised pride. His suit today was elegant, but simpler. He'd been dressing more conservatively lately as they prepared for increased public scrutiny. And on Zara's left hand, catching the light every time she gestured, was the ring that had been in his family for 3 generations, now paired with a wedding band. But there was something else too. A subtle glow to her skin, a fullness to her figure that she'd been carefully hiding under tailored suits. She was 3 months pregnant. They hadn't told anyone yet except her grandmother and the Mafia boss's most trusted advisors, but soon they'd have to, especially as her body continued to change. The board approved the IPO timeline with unanimous consent. As the meeting adjourned, the Mafia boss crossed the room to her, pulling her into his arms despite the audience. "You were magnificent," he murmured against her hair. "We were magnificent. This is as much your work as mine." The Mafia boss's hand settled on her still flat stomach, protective and possessive. "How are you feeling? You've been on your feet for hours." "I'm fine. The morning sickness is finally passing." Zara leaned into him. "But I'm ready to go home." "Then let's go home." They drove back to the estate together, the Mafia boss's hand never leaving hers. "I've been thinking," Zara said as they pulled through the gates, "about the baby." "Yes, I want to raise them to understand both sides of who they are. The legitimate business world and the other one. The power and the responsibility that comes with it." She looked at him. "I don't want them sheltered from the truth of what this family is." The Mafia boss was quiet for a moment. "You're sure? I could keep them separate from that world. Keep them safe." "There is no safe. Not really. Not for our children. They'll always be targets because of who you are, who we are together." Zara squeezed his hand. Better they understand the reality and learn how to navigate it than be blindsided later. "You're going to be a fierce mother." The Mafia boss's voice was thick with emotion. "Our children are lucky to have you. They're lucky to have both of us." That night, lying in bed together, the Mafia boss traced patterns on Zara's stomach. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. "A wife I love, a child on the way, a future that looks like something other than violence and darkness. You have it now. We have it now." Zara covered his hand with hers. "We built something extraordinary from something terrible." "You built it. You took my mess of an empire and turned it into something I can be proud of. Something I can leave to our children someday." "We built it together," Zara corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, without your trust, your support, your willingness to change." The Mafia boss pulled her closer, his hand still protective over their child. "I love you, Zara. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." "I love you too." 5 years after that cold January night when everything changed, Zara stood in the nursery of their estate, watching the Mafia boss rock their daughter to sleep. Amara was 3 years old, with her mother's dark skin and her father's ice blue eyes, a striking combination that turned heads wherever they went. Their son, Nikolai Jr., was 18 months old, sleeping peacefully in his crib. "She's fighting sleep again," the Mafia boss said softly, his voice tender in a way that only his family ever heard, "just like her mother." "She gets that stubbornness from both sides," Zara said, moving to stand beside him. She was pregnant again, their third child, due in 4 months. The Mafia boss looked up at her, his expression soft with love. How are you feeling? Tired? Happy? Grateful? Zara smiled. Our life is strange, isn't it? Board meetings in the morning, bedtime stories at night, and occasionally dealing with rival families who need reminding of boundaries. It's perfect, the Mafia boss said simply. It's everything I never knew I needed. Amara finally drifted off, and the Mafia boss laid her gently in her bed. Together they stood looking at their sleeping children, the future of their empire, their legacy, their hope. Do you ever regret it? Zara asked quietly. Choosing this path? Going legitimate? It's cost us some power, some influence. Never. The Mafia boss pulled her close, his hand settling on her pregnant belly. I have something more valuable than power now. I have a family. I have you. I have a future that extends beyond just survival. They walked together to their bedroom, the Mafia boss's arm around her waist, protective as always. I got a call today, Zara said as they got ready for bed. From the mayor's office. They want me to join the Financial Crimes Task Force. Apparently, my reputation for finding fraud has reached City Hall. The Mafia boss raised an eyebrow. That's bold of them, considering they know exactly who you're married to. I think that's why they want me. They figure if I can keep your books clean, I can help them clean up the rest of the city. Zara laughed. Should I tell them yes? That's your decision to make. You know I'll support whatever you choose. The Mafia boss pulled her into his arms. Though it is rather ironic, the Mafia boss's wife helping the city fight organized crime. I think that's what they're counting on. Who better to catch criminals than someone who knows exactly how they think? You're going to say yes, aren't you? I am. Zara looked up at him. Is that a problem? Never. The Mafia boss kissed her forehead. You've made me better, Zara. Made my organization better. Maybe you can do the same for the whole city. We'll do it together, just like everything else. That night, lying in bed together, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that cold January night when she'd been fired and terrified to this moment, safe, loved, building a future that seemed impossible 5 years ago. She'd chosen danger. She'd chosen complexity. She'd chosen a man who would kill to protect her and was honest enough to admit it. And she'd helped him build something better than what he had before. Not perfect. The Mafia boss still ran operations that weren't entirely legal, still dealt with threats in ways that made her uncomfortable sometimes. But he'd changed, evolved, become something more than just a crime boss. He'd become a husband, a father, a partner in every sense of the word. What are you thinking about? The Mafia boss murmured, his hand drawing circles on her hip. That I'd walk through 100 frozen nights if they all ended here. With you, with our family, with this life we've built together. You won't have to. From now on, when it's cold, you'll be warm and safe. He pulled her closer. I'll make sure of it. I know you will. The screen fades to black, then slowly opens on the estate 10 years later. Zara stands in the grand office that was once the Mafia boss's alone, but is now shared between them. At 41, she's even more striking than she was at 29, confident, powerful, wearing authority like a second skin. Behind her, through the windows, the grounds are filled with children playing. Amara is 13 now, already showing signs of her father's strategic mind and her mother's analytical brilliance. Nikolai Jr. is 10, charming and clever. The twins, Sophia and Alexander, are 8, wild and fearless. The Mafia boss enters, now in his mid-50s, silver threading more heavily through his dark hair. He's still imposing, still dangerous, but there's a contentment in his eyes that wasn't there before. "The council is asking for you," he says, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Something about the Brooklyn territory dispute." "Tell them I'll be there in an hour. I'm finishing the quarterly report for the SEC first." Zara leans back against him. "Being legitimate is a lot more paperwork than I expected." The Mafia boss laughs, but significantly less bloodshed, most of the time. They stand together, looking out at their children, at the empire they've built, half legitimate corporation, half criminal organization, entirely their own. "Do you ever miss it?" Zara asks. "The old way, when it was just about power and control?" "Never." The Mafia boss turns her in his arms. "You gave me something better than power. You gave me purpose, meaning, a legacy that's about more than just fear and violence. We gave that to each other." "Yes, we did." Outside, Amara calls for her siblings to come inside for dinner. The family gathers, loud and loving and completely unique. At the head of the table sits the Mafia boss, still commanding but softer now. At the other end sits Zara, the analyst who became a queen, who transformed an empire and found love in the darkest places. Their story had started with fear and danger and impossible choices. It had become something extraordinary. The Mafia boss reaches across the table and takes Zara's hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture so natural, so right, that their children barely notice. But they both feel it, the certainty, the love, the knowledge that they'd found something rare and precious and worth fighting for. Together, they'd turned darkness into light, and that was the greatest victory of all. The story shows that redemption is possible, that love can bloom in unexpected places, and that sometimes the right person doesn't just accept who we are, they help us become better versions of ourselves. The Mafia boss and Zara built something extraordinary together, not despite their differences, but because of them. She brought light to his darkness, and he gave her the power to change an empire. Together, they created a legacy that was about more than just survival. It was about building something worth passing on to the next generation. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove humanity still exists in the darkest places. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from, and hit that like button if this story moved you. See you in the next one.